Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back with another video. Today, we're going to predict every fight on UFC 314, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. I'm going to start with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So, without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the video. Starting off with the early prelims, Nora Cornolle versus Hailey Cowan. Why the fuck is Hailey Cowan getting this fight? She's coming off a loss to Jamie Lynn Horth, who isn't even ranked in her division, to now get number 13 ranked Nora Canoli. What are we doing here, UFC? Like, I get Lily Kwan is hot as fuck, but we can't give these hot girls free jump ups in competition just because they got a nice ass. But anyways, I'm gonna go with Nora Canoli based on the fact that she didn't lose to Jamie Lynn Horth, and she's at least willing to throw punches. I know Cornolle can't throw a punch correctly despite being top 15 in the UFC's bantamweight division, but she looks like dog shit against Jacqueline Cavalcanti, which I don't mind as much because Cavalcanti is pretty good. I mean, you never truly know for women's bantamweight fights, even at the top 15 level, because it's a coin flip until you get to like the top 7 or 5 area. But I'm gonna go with Nora Canoli, probably by 29-28 decision. Moving on, we have Treason Gore versus Marco Tulio. I'm gonna go with Marco Tulio. I know Treason Gore is known as the neck snatcher, but I don't see anything exceptional about Treason Gore outside of a power guillotine. Even though Tulio is relatively unproven, he looked really good against Ihor Potieria. Uh, Sharp combinations down the pipe, and I believe that Tulio is a different level striker than anyone Tresean Gore has faced. Now, there is an argument that Gore can just shoot takedowns and kind of hold him there, or even get a guillotine. But I believe Tulio is good enough to stay on the feet. And also, Marco Tulio got knocked out by Cody Brundage. If Cody Brundage is knocking you out, then I think Marco Tulio can as well. I'm gonna go with Marco Tulio to either get a first or second round KO over Tresean Gore. Moving on, we have Sumudaerji versus Mitch Raposo. I'm gonna go with Mitch Raposo. I know he looked awful in his fight with Andre Lima, but that's Andre Lima. Andre Lima is really good. I know people are gonna point out that Mitch Raposo is very susceptible to calf kicks, and how Sumudaerji is very good at throwing calf kicks, but Sumudaerji does not have the threat that an Andre Lima has. Like, yes, both of them primarily like to throw leg kicks at range, but Lima actually puts like mustard on them. Like, you could see the swelling on Raposo's calves whenever Lima throws a leg kick. I've never seen that in a Sumudaerji fight. Sumudaerji just likes to tippy tap his kicks out of range and just like throw counters whenever opponents come in. Maybe Sumudaerji can just dance around long enough for 3 rounds. I'm gonna trust that Raposa actually shoots takedowns at some point in the fight because we know that Sumudaerji is really weak when it comes to wrestling or even grappling in general. Uh, I predict Mitch Raposo will win. It's hard to say the method of victory. I'll go with like 29-28 control time decision. But I think Mitch Raposo isn't awful, so I'm gonna go with Mitch Raposo to win via control grappling decision. Moving on, we have Sedriques Dumas versus Michał Oleksiejczuk. I'm gonna go with Michał Oleksiejczuk. Now, Oleksiejczuk has had a very rough list of fights over the past year or so. He got destroyed by Michel Pereira. He got subbed by Kevin Holland and then had a reasonably competitive fight with Shara Bullet, but not really. Like, let's be honest, Shara Bullet just tuned up Olasechuk for 3 rounds. But I believe those guys are way better than Sedriques Dumas. Sedriques Dumas does not do anything other than hold people against the cage for as long as possible. I'm not saying it's anything like Taurus Finney, but it's not the most exciting thing in the world, and I just don't see that working against a guy like Michał Oleksiejczuk. In order to beat Michał Oleksiejczuk, you either need some form of submission threat, exceptional body work, or you need really good footwork to move laterally around. In a dogfight with Michał Oleksiejczuk, where you're just close with him the entire time, it's really hard to win that. And I'm definitely not picking Sedriques Dumas to do so, which is why I'm gonna go with Oleksiejczuk to win by round 2 or 3 TKO. Moving on, we have Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. This is essentially the ultimate trap fight because no matter who you pick to win this fight, you're going to feel stupid doing so. Like, why would you pick 41-year-old Darren Elkins, who's only known for taking a shit ton of punishment and still finding ways to win against absolute bums? All right, because the opponent is Julian Erosa, who can only beat good fighters. I never understood how the same fighter fraud checking Christian Rodriguez, Charles Jourdain, and Nate Landwehr can also be losing to Fernando Padilla, Alex Caceres, and Sung Woo Choi. It genuinely doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna say that Julian Erosa wins this fight, even though I just highlighted why you shouldn't pick Julian Erosa. I just can't pick a 41-year-old fighter to win a fight in the UFC. There are exceptions to the rule, like Glover Teixeira back in the day, but that's former light heavyweight champion Glover Teixeira. I'm not straying away from this rule just because Darren Elkins beat TJ Brown and Daniel Pineda. The only way Darren Elkins wins is via dogfights, and you're not going to win a dogfight against Julian Rosa, who somehow becomes more dangerous as the fight progresses. Most likely, Erosa is going to get this done by a late round TKO, but I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes this in the first round either. Moving on, we have Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. Jim Miller is unfortunately cooked. Chase Hooper is a fucking monster, and that's crazy to say considering how, despite being 25 years old, he still looks like a prepubescent teen. But Chase Hooper is now a man. He's built some muscle, he's got the confidence, and now he is rapidly improving his skills. I believe that Chase Hooper is going to retire Jim Miller, as hard as it is for me to say that because I am a New Jersey native, it's unfortunate that he needs to fight Chase Hooper right now. Like, if you want to get a sense of how good Chase Hooper is, watch his fight with Vyacheslav Borshev because going into that fight, I thought Borshev was going to tune him up on the feet. Little did I know that Chase Hooper was going to be the one to drop world-class kickboxer Vyacheslav Borshev on the feet. And on the ground, fucking hell, that was a mauling. I know early on in his career, Hooper lost a few fights. He got brutally knocked out. Some of his fights, like when he fought Steve Garcia. First off, Steve Garcia is really good. And second off, that was I'll bring her home by 10 p.m., sir, Chase Hooper. This is now, he calls me daddy, Chase Hooper. Maybe 2 years ago, I would have picked Jim Miller to win, but now that Chase Hooper's hitting his prime, I think you have to be like a top 15 caliber opponent in order for me to say you can beat Chase Hooper. I'm gonna go with Chase Hooper, probably via submission, or he's just gonna bully Jim Miller across 3 rounds via 30-25 decision. I think this is gonna be the end of the road for Jim Miller's career. Moving on, we have Xiaonan versus Virna Jiandiroba. Jiandiroba has some nasty jiu-jitsu. The common opinion is that Virna Jiandiroba is gonna finally submit Xiaonan, and that is a huge possibility. I believe that Jiandiroba's submission ability is the best in the division, even better than Zhang Weili's. But that doesn't mean that Jiandiroba is better than Weili, because I don't think she is even better at like any other part of the game other than jiu-jitsu, which is why I believe Yan Xiaonan is going to win this fight. Listen, against Zhang Weili, there were so many things that Yan had to worry about. The wrestling threat, clinch work, the forward pressure on top of the jiu-jitsu. And even though Yan got better of Weili on the feet, Weili's not a terrible striker, so that's also a factor Yan had to worry about. In this matchup, I know that Jandiroba's only path to victory is to move forward with combinations before shooting takedowns, typically a single or double leg. I believe if doubles or singles are the only things Yan Xiaonan has to worry about, then she's gonna do a lot better than when she fought like a Zhang Weili, who has a lot more options. Like Yan Xiaonan, she does a good job like feinting uppercuts, and I think that's gonna frustrate Jandiroba as Yan Xiaonan picks her apart on the feet. And if Jandiroba gets the takedown, then yeah, she'll choke out Xiaonan. I don't think Jiandiroba's wrestling is nearly as good as Zhang Weili's. Nor do I believe that Jiandiroba can pressure forward like a Zhang Weili. Like I watched her strike, and all she can do is like throw 1-2. She doesn't do anything else, and that's why I'm gonna go with Yan Jianan, probably by 30-27 decision or possibly a knockout. Moving on, we have Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. I'm done downing Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson is incredibly good. Say what you want about his extraterrestrial appearance. The guy's boxing is fun to watch. Lightning fast jabs, the body work is scrumptious, and the subtle feints he throws are very hard to tell whether they are real shots or not, which is why I'm going to go with Sean Woodson to win this fight. I know a lot of people are picking Dan Ige, a big power puncher who knows how to knock anyone out that doesn't really have the best footwork with solid boxing defense. Like there is a chance that Danny Gay knocks out John Woodson. Not really. Like when's the last time Danny Gay knocked anyone out? Andre Feely? Damon Jackson? I'll be real. Andre Feely and Damon Jackson are both shit compared to Sean Woodson. I think Sean Woodson is good enough to avoid most of the gnarly overhand rights and just pick apart Ige for 3 rounds. Maybe Ige uses his grappling to try and take Woodson down against the fence, but Woodson has really good takedown defense against the fence at least. And I don't see Dan Ige shooting takedowns out in the open. It's gonna take someone like an Aljamain Sterling with exceptional wrestling for me to say Sean Woodson is cooked. I just don't see that with Dan Ige, which is why I'm gonna say that Sean Woodson wins this fight in typical Woodson fashion, 29-28 decision. Moving on to the main card, we have Nikita Krylov versus Dominick Reyes. I'm actually really invested in how this fight goes because this is all going to depend on how Nikita Krylov looks. I know it's been almost 2 years since Krylov last fought, but if Krylov comes back with that Buffalo mentality he's had in all of his fights before the 2-year hiatus, he's going to sleep Dominick Reyes. And listen, I want Dominick Reyes to win this fight. He beat John Jones. He went on this long loss streak after getting robbed of a victory from John Jones, and now he's making a career resurgence. But I can totally see Krylov just walking down Dominick Reyes. Krylov's chin is up in the air, and he leans into a lot of his punches, which works perfectly for Dominick Reyes. However, Krylov is nearly impossible to knock out. Like, don't get me wrong, Reyes has some pop in his shots, but Ozdemir was hitting him, Krylov with hard shots. Ankalaev was countering Krylov with explosive shots. Ryan Spann was coming out guns blazing and couldn't finish off Krylov. Like, this dude is nearly impossible to knock out. And at some point, I fear for Dominick Reyes' chin. Like, taking shots from Dustin Jacoby, who's more of a point striker than a power puncher at light heavyweight, doesn't fully convince me that Reyes' chin is intact. Like, I don't know. Maybe Reyes has fully healed his chin up from the injury since his losses to Ryan Spann, Yuri Prohaska, and Jan Blachowicz. But I can just see Krylov catching Reyes in a wild exchange. And unlike Krylov, which you need to throw the kitchen sink in order to knock him down, it only takes one punch or two to uh, KO Dominic Reyes. I don't think wrestling is going to be that much of a factor, but if anyone is going to wrestle, it's probably Nikita Krylov. So if Krylov does get trouble on the feet because he leans his chin forward and Reyes tags him with the left, then he could even possibly mix the grappling. I know Reyes is hard to take down, but Krylov is no slouch against the fence and on the ground. I don't think that the fight will take place on the ground, just from how strong Reyes is when it comes to balancing himself up against the fence. Well, I would not be surprised if Krylov can find success on the ground. But more likely, I suspect that both fighters get into this wild exchange. Krylov is going to get tagged up like usual, but at some point, Krylov just catches Reyes with a right hand, putting him out cold. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to go with Nikita Krylov to win this fight via KO. Moving on, we have Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. I'm gonna go with Yair Rodriguez to win this fight. Listen, I've never watched Patricio Pitbull in his prime. The only fight I watched of Pitbull at this time was what Bellator posted several months back when Pitbull fought Jeremy Kennedy. My problem with Pitbull, based on that fight, is that he doesn't throw that much output. Against a guy like Yair Rodriguez, you can't just give him space to attack first. Against Yair Rodriguez, you need to be able to pressure forward, withstand the punishment in order to deal twice the amount of damage back. People who accept that they're gonna get hurt by Yair Rodriguez typically beat him. The ones that don't typically lose. And I think based on the way Patricio Pitbull fights, as well as the fact that he is 37 years old, I don't think he has the tools to beat Yair Rodriguez. Plus, this is a three rounder, which is something Pitbull hasn't fought in a very long time. Like, I've noticed this with a lot of 5 round fighters. They don't have the sense of urgency to push the pace in a 3 rounder because they are just so used to cruising 5 rounds. Now, could Yair Rodriguez get held down on the canvas if Pitbull takes him down? Yes, but Pitbull rarely shoots takedowns, if at all, in his fights. And people forget, Yair is nasty on the feet. I was watching his fight back with Josh Emmett, and Rodriguez was hooking Emmett's leg and liver before getting the submission win. I believe over the course of 3 rounds, Pitbull is going to get chewed up by Yair Rodriguez, and I trust that Rodriguez has been working on his takedown defense now that he joined Bilal Muhammad's team. I'm going to go with Yair Rodriguez via 30-27 decision or a late round TKO via head kick. Moving on to Armageddon. Ross Mitchell versus John Silva. This is the ultimate battle between angels versus demons. This fight was promised to us 3,000 years ago. Will the last hope of Christianity in the United States survive, or will communism take over the United States of America? All right, jokes aside, I I know this is gonna sound like a controversial opinion. I like the way both of these guys fight. Say what you will about their antics and their controversial opinions. I like the way Bryce Mitchell fights because a lot of what Bryce Mitchell does grappling wise, I try to implement them in my sparring sessions. And as for Jean Silva, he's really fun to watch. With that being said, the devil is calling me. I'm gonna go with Jean Silva. I know Bryce Mitchell is all about burning books, but this fighting nerd has studied the X's and O's to defeat Bryce Mitchell. And listen, I'm not even going to use the Josh Emmett argument. Josh Emmett caught Bryce Mitchell with a perfectly timed overhand right. It's the Josh Emmett thing where, like, Josh Emmett gets a first round knockout once every 3 or 4 years. It happens. The reason I'm going to go with John Silva, however, is because Bryce Mitchell gets hit in every fight, regardless if he wins or not. Like, bro was getting tagged up by Crone Gracie. Fucking soy boy BJJ nerd with zero talent in other martial arts, Crone Gracie. Like, I get that Bryce is more of an exceptional grappler than a striker. If you are a UFC caliber fighter, please, at least tune up Crone Gracie on the feet. You don't have to knock him out because Crone Gracie's got a really tough chin. Please, tune up Crone Gracie for 15 minutes of a fight. If Crone Gracie is tagging Mitchell up on the feet, what do you think Silva is going to do to Bryce Mitchell? Now, I fully understand the argument that Silva's grappling is untested. Oh, Charles Jourdain held him down. Yeah, well, Jourdain couldn't really do much with the takedowns, now could he? People act as if Jourdain was holding Silva down for a while. Jourdain at best was able to hold down John Silva for 15 to 20 seconds, and eventually, John Silva brutally put him away in the clinch. You can't assume that John Silva's grappling defense is garbage because he got taken down twice and got held down for like 20 seconds. If anything, I would say that Silva's grappling is relatively untested, whereas Bryce Mitchell's striking defense has proven to be shaky. There's gonna be a moment in this fight where Bryce Mitchell gets bombarded with power shots, and I don't think Mitchell will be able to survive the onslaught. Jean Silva is gonna put interest on top of the Josh Emmett beating, and he's gonna knock out Bryce Mitchell so badly that Bryce is gonna see the earth as round. Now, I do think that if the fight goes past the second round, Bryce's chances go way up, but I just see Mitchell getting flatlined on the canvas before we even get to find out. Ross Mitchell is going to be fishing for a takedown, but the fish is going to be too big for the boat, and the boat's going to sink as a result, along with Bryce Mitchell inside it. In other words, I'm picking John Silva to win this fight via round 1 or 2 TKO. Moving on to the co-main event. Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler. Oh man, like I watched a shit ton of tape for this fight. Everything tells me that Michael Chandler should beat Paddy Pimblett. Chandler has the better technique on the feet. He has the better cardio. He's more explosive. He's got the better wrestling. Michael Chandler is a lot better at multiple aspects of the game. But can you trust Michael Chandler to win a fight that he should? Because he is a fucking retard. Plain and simple. I know Paddy Pimblett is much worse compared to who Chandler had to fight regularly, but can you trust Chandler to win a fight at this point? What I see is the second he rocks Pimblett on the feet and has him stumbling, Chandler will do Michael Chandler things and start swinging clumsily overhand rights like a drunk uncle at a bar and somehow give up his back in the process. It happened in his fight with Charles Oliveira last November, and it happened in his fight with Justin Gaethje. I think if you give up your back against a guy like Paddy Pimblett, it's going to be a world of trouble for you. Like, watch his fight with Bobby Green. The jujitsu in that fight was fucking nasty work. I know Oliveira couldn't get him out there by sub, but I believe Oliveira was coming into that fight more to play safe. Like, just to prove that he can wrestle, just to prove that, like, he can go 5 rounds. Like, overall, just, like, show that he has different aspects to his game other than his jujitsu. Pimblett's not going out there to do that. Pimblett, I believe, is going out there for an early submission. Now, if this fight gets to the later rounds, Paddy is fucked. But the way I see this fight going is as follows. Early on, Chandler is going to be looking for a big 1-2 down the pipe. Meanwhile, Paddy is on the outside chewing up Chandler's leg. We know Chandler is susceptible to low kicks, and Paddy has really good low kicks. Chandler is going to get impatient and start trying to charge in like a bull, rushing Paddy Pimblett. Paddy gets wobbled. Then Chandler tries to finish the fight in Chandler fashion, only to somehow give up a back or a dominant position. And next thing you know, Chandler is on the canvas, sleeping. I'm picking Paddy Pimblett to win this via round 1 or 2 submission. Finally, we get to the main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. Oh man, I watched so much film on this, and I still can't decisively pick who I believe is going to win this fight. I will say this, Volkanovski is the much better fighter technically. He's the much faster fighter than Diego Lopes. He has more variety in his shots. He has much better footwork. His wrestling, I'd say, is better. Like, there are a lot of things that Alexander Volkanovski is better than at Diego Lopes. But the question is, do you trust 37 years old Alexander Volkanovski coming back from a brutal KO loss to Ilia Topuria, has had to take over a year off as a result to win this fight? I know everyone has probably said this, but the first round or two is going to decide how this fight is going to turn out. Can Volkanovski outpace Diego Lopes, or will Diego Lopes catch Volkanovski? Maybe if this were Volkanovski in his prime, I would pick him to beat Diego Lopes over the course of 5 rounds. But something in my gut tells me that Diego Lopes will beat Volkanovski viciously this Saturday. The one thing I'm scared for Volkanovski is when he gets in the clinch against Diego Lopes. Based on watching a lot of film on Diego Lopes, his best weapons are collar ties into knees and uppercuts in the clinch. Like, I watched the fight with Sabatini. While they were in clinch together, Lopes grabbed the collar tie and threw a vicious knee and uppercut, which forced Sabatini to shoot a panic takedown, and that ultimately led to Sabatini's demise. We know that Volkanovski likes to move his head out of the way first rather than shell up to block punches, but it just takes Lopes like to be able to grab Volkanovski's head and start pummeling him with vicious knees and right hands to stun him. Like, prime Volk, I would say he's too fast for Diego Lopes because we know how Volkanovski slips into all of these crazy angles and shit. But now I see more of a tentative Volkanovski who just leaves his head out in the open. Not that he necessarily lost his speed. I just think he lost the aggression that and swagger that he used to have after that Makachev head kick KO. And the fight with Ilia Topuria, every time Volkanovski threw a strike, he's leaning his chin all the way back. I know Volk does that a lot defensively, but he's been doing that way more ever since that knockout loss to Islam Makhachev. I don't feel the same swagger coming from Volkanovski right now because in his last fight, he fought basically not to get hit. And you can't be doing that against a guy like Diego Lopes because chances are you will get hit trying to play around with your chin on the outside, avoiding shots. Ironically, you have to meet fire with fire against Diego Lopes. And you can't just throw jabs and calf kicks out of range, hoping that Lopes will tire himself out. I had a blast watching Alexander Volkanovski's title reign. I think this is the unfortunate end of an era in the featherweight division. I'm picking Diego Lopes to win via round 1 or 2 TKO in the clinch. It's going to be sad. Listen, I would want Volkanovski to win. I just don't see it. I just don't see it, unfortunately. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below who you think are going to win each of the individual fights at UFC 314. Other than that, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.